Oh, hey. Didn't see you come in earlier. Hey, are you also waiting for the pod to start? Me too. Yeah. Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Lance Lester. I'm a reader and listener to Third Degree. Oh, hey, nice to meet you, Steve. Hey, listen, while I have you here, can I talk to you about my soccer apparel Lord and Savior, Soccer 90? Not only is Third Degree the podcast brought to you by Soccer 90, but they are also your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Check out the new arrivals dropping daily. If you missed out on the North Texas SC Pinstripe away jersey at launch, more stock has arrived in various sizes, which is very good for me. I love various sizes. Grab yours before it's gone, but remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions may apply. Steve, wait, come back! Don't run away!
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast, episode number
161.
161. Hi, it's me, Peter, and per normal, my two buddies. First, Dan Crooke. Hello, Dan.
Hello,
Excuse me,
Peter.
wait. Howdy, Dan.
Oh, not this shit. You know how many people have come up to me and said howdy lately? It's getting...
I love it. I love it. It's a good bit, Dan. Bits are fun. And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of Third Degree, the podcast, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. My lovely wife is out of town, so I'm having a big party tonight in my house.
Oh, you're batching it.
Yep.
All right.
Going crazy.
How long's she gone for?
Oh, just a couple days. She went to visit her sister.
Man, you just
Yep.
like rolling and sitting around in your underwear.
Yeah.
Leaving food out on the counter.
The place is a mess.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is the dog sleeping with you?
No. He sleeps on the floor.
Oh, okay. You should
So the
tell her.
question still remains.
Yeah.
No, I don't get down on the floor with the dog.
Well, you might get lonely. You never know. Okay, so I don't know how you guys want to do this because we've got some good and we've got some not so good to discuss because since the last episode, Dallas had a tremendous evening at the Toyota Stadium against Seattle, and then a not so good road trip in the Open Cup last night. Where would you like to go first, guys? Which one do you want to do first?
Well, let's just start with them in order of when they happened.
Okay, we'll start on Saturday night, Toyota Stadium. What a night, what a crowd, what a drone show. Amazing, those modern marvels of technology. We see FC Dallas beating Seattle, or as El Jefe once described it as, the Tacoma Defiance had come to town and got a really, really nice win, Buzz.
Yeah. You got to play who the other team brings, which is fine. Sometimes you get rotations. It happens. They won the CONCACAF Champions League in the middle of the week, so we knew that they were going to rotate a lot of people, or assumed that they would. So good comprehensive win for FC Dallas. But I think the thing you have to take away from that game, even more than just the fact that it was a good win, is the continued improvement in the stands. I think you have to give FC Dallas a lot of credit. I don't know exactly what they're doing. Lots of different things are probably contributing to this. But there's definitely an uptick of the number of people in the stadium. Is it 68,000 like Seattle had midweek? No, but compared to where this club's been, it's a marked improvement, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for all part of this new era push they're making, and people are getting, at least in Frisco, people are getting excited about the team, I think.
Seattle really threw out a frustrating lineup in the fact that I think it was one of those deals where it's a no-win situation for Dallas because it was such a recycled set of players. And, man, there were some guys out there that I swear were skipping their prom Saturday night. They look so young for Seattle. But there was also some quality on the field, and Seattle had done some things that was very clearly confusing a fully lined-up Dallas.
Yeah, they played a different shape, and I know Dan has some stuff on this too, but they played a different shape than they normally do. They normally play a 4-3-3 like Dallas does, but they went with a three-man back line, or you can call it a five-man back line, or however you like to describe that. I prefer to call it a 3-man back line, but they definitely did sit way back. And in the end, Dallas in that game in response ended up going through 3 different formations, which is, I think, really cool. I mean, they used the 4-3-3 to start, and then they ended up in a 4-2-3-1, which is something they've been working on. And then in the final bit, they went to a 3-4-3. So that kind of flexibility is really cool. I love seeing it. And I think it says a lot about the mental quality of the Dallas team, that they can do those things. And in the end, you have to beat who you got to beat. You got to take care of your business. And this was definitely a taking care of business at home game. I mean, they've blown games like this before, notably the Red Bull one. Was it like 3 years ago now? That was so brutally bad. But Dan, I know that Seattle's probably about what we expected coming in, but the formation definitely was not what we expected.
No, Paul Arriola had said after the game that they spent the whole week preparing for either a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. So to get the lineup sheet an hour before the game and see, to see what they kind of worked out was going to be that back three. There was a few last minute adjustments from Nico, last minute instructions. Just kind of patchwork, really, until they could see it in effect in the game. It is the formation that they did play much of last season in. They had won their CCL game starting that in that 3-4-2-1, I guess you'd call it. But yeah, I think it was really cool. It was a great test for Nico to go up against one of MLS's great tacticians in Brian Schmetzer, who could take 11 dogs and put them out and probably beat into Miami. To go through that game, see them, see Seattle roll out a couple of formations, react, try and draw them out a little bit and go through the 3 like you mentioned.
So when I was watching the game, my notes from the first half were mostly about just how frustrating Dallas was to watch. They just looked so slow, and my big takeaway from the first half of the game was that it was almost as if Dallas plays as if it's scared of itself. They would possess the ball in their half, get into kind of the middle third of the field, and as soon as they got to Seattle's defending third, it just all kind of went wonky from there. And it was almost a case of they were afraid to try things against the team that they shouldn't have, a lineup specifically, they shouldn't have been afraid of. And I found that really frustrating. And I'm not sure what changed between the first half and the second half, because they certainly didn't look afraid of themselves in the second half.
Well, that's an interesting observation. I think we've indicated many times that from the outside, it certainly seems like Dallas likes to stifle, under this coach, likes to stifle the game a lot, and take the other team out of it. And it's potentially possible that the first half of that game was all about making sure you had Seattle contained, which they did. Obviously, when you hold another team to 0 shots, that's a pretty remarkable. 0 shots on goal. That's a pretty remarkable performance, even if it is the other team's reserve team. I do often think that Coach Nico makes good adjustments at halftime. There's often a positive response, not always, but often a positive response. The other game we'll get to, there was not. But I think that overall, it was the kind of performance where, even though I think it started slow, you just sort of felt like, from the beginning, for me anyway, Dallas just had the whole thing in hand. Like, I just never felt like Seattle was really going to challenge them at all in that game. And maybe that seeped into their mentality, that they just were like, oh, we've got this already from the get-go. I mean, you don't like that mentality, but maybe it did.
Well, it's weird. I actually attended the game. I sat with some friends, the famous Barbero family, which has had season tickets since literally day one back in 1996. And they have seats in the front row, right on the center stripe on the east side. And I was very lucky to get to sit with them. And it was a really interesting perspective, because I typically sit very far up and try to get a whole field view. And Buzz, at least from being at the game, I didn't get that sense. I got the sense that they were really hesitant. Maybe this is the tactical problem with the way Seattle set up, and that confused them. I thought Emma looked really slow in his decision-making. Velasco looked really, I saw that blonde-haired Thomas Roberts lookalike kid just absolutely stone cold steal the ball from Velasco at least twice, and it was just a weird deal. And the vibe of the team was dramatically different when they came out in the second half.
Yeah, maybe they were just complacent. It's hard to really say. I didn't feel that watching the game on TV. Quite frankly, I was enthralled by Paxton Pomacall's breathtaking play. But maybe that's all it is. Maybe it was maybe what seems like some hesitancy was just like a lack of urgency, perhaps. I do like hearing that it changed for you in the second half. That's really positive to hear.
Oh, it was definitely no. I was secretly hoping that this was all a byproduct of Nico losing his ever-loving mind and going on a cussing tirade in the locker room and throwing some things.
Yeah, I wonder about that too sometimes. Yeah,
there was that level of change in the body language and kind of the spirit of the team between first and second half, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't remember feeling that way, but it was. I mean, the team played a whole other game since then, so maybe I'm just blocking it out. I do remember at some point in a recent game, and I can't remember whether it was this one, thinking that same idea. Like, I wonder if Coach ripped him a new one at halftime. And maybe it was this game. Maybe I've just blocked it out since then.
Dan, you were at the game. Did you see it differently, or one way or the other?
No, I definitely saw that hesitancy in the final third. You had moments where Jesus is on the, a step or two inside the box, and he just turns and tries to lay it off to Areola or whoever's around, and it was like they were lining up to not shoot at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's they were definitely had moments of confusion, not quite understanding maybe where the runs were coming from that they expected, which that comes with in-game adjustments, which Nico's been fairly good at. But yeah, like you say, it does seem like his halftime adjustments. And was it the Kansas City away game where it was just night and day different? Obviously not this one, the league game.
The earlier one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting because this is why I love sitting out in the crowd, because it's always great just to kind of get a general vibe of the fan base. And there was a distinct level of frustration over the game because I think everybody noticed that Seattle had rolled out a secondary team, and so the way the season's been going, there was a sense that Dallas should really push and dominate and kick some serious ass, and that wasn't happening. And when Velasco had that just awful miss of an opportunity in the first half, the crowd, you could just sense the crowd getting very frustrated at that point. But again, when things switched in the second half, the vibe completely changed and the atmosphere in the stadium got really electric and is about as good as I've ever heard it inside Toyota Stadium.
Maybe that expectation is part of why it felt that way. Like if you and everyone else around you and even the team is thinking, why aren't we stomping the tar out of this team? And maybe it feels like that, there is a hesitancy there, and all it takes is that someone to just sort of tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, guys, you should be stomping this team, for them to then go do it in the second half.
Yeah, it was the substitutions were interesting because you just finally got the sense that Smetzer felt like he had set a pretty fine trap by rolling out what he did and then deciding he was going to throw on a lot of his best players within 20 minutes to see if he couldn't snatch something away. It didn't work, but it was at least an interesting game plan on their part.
Yeah, in a way, that's exactly what Kansas City did the next game, where they brought in some of their big guns. And you're right, that Seattle had Montero and both Roldans and Rusnak, and they had plenty of guys to bring in and make a charge. The main thing I remember from the first half was how dangerous Matt Hedges was on corners and set plays in that half. I think he had a shot at like 3 different goals at one point. And it was nice to see that kind of dominant on-air performance when Matt had missed the previous game. When he comes back, it's such a massive reminder of how incredibly good and how important he is, and how bad the team is when he's gone.
Yeah. It's funny. We've talked in this podcast about the condition of the field and players slipping, and there was a moment in the game that almost cost Dallas dearly. As I think it's a corner kick, and Seattle plays it out. Am I right, Dan? Was it a corner kick in transition that this happened in when Tiamasi slips?
Tiamasi.
Yeah, I think it was. So Tomasi's the last man back, and the ball comes out, and one of their players, one of their young guys playing up front, and you're going for the ball, and Tomasi just slips. And that was a bad deal, but it didn't, the goal didn't get scored. Tomasi runs back, Paz makes a save, or it was a bad shot. I couldn't tell from the angle I was at. But it did end up helping because I'm pretty sure a Seattle player slipped on the second goal for Dallas. So that helped out that situation.
Yeah, the field continues to be a problem. We've explained what happened. It shouldn't be a problem too much further because it's now the end of this month. It'll get changed out for the winter grass, and Dallas only has, I think, 1 or 2 home games between now and then. So maybe just 1 even. But it's they now have, after the Cup game, they now have 5 of 7 on the road through the end of June. So there's plenty of time for them to change the grass over, and it shouldn't be a problem very much longer because it definitely was a problem again in this game, especially frustrating to see Tuamasi slip when it's like, dude, you're the home team. Man, you got to know to get some long cleats on when you're coming out there. It shouldn't be that big of a thing.
Well, I'll tell you, I was specifically looking at it, and again, not to humble brag, but being down on the front row, you can get a pretty good view of what people's cleats and their shoes and their studs look like. Most of those guys look like they're wearing about as long a screw-in as they could.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder if it's just, they're doing the best, they've got the best they can for the situation. The field's just in that weird a state.
Yeah, it could be.
And they're just going to have to play it out.
Yep.
For sure.
I think it helps now that back in the day you used to have like the real long screw-ins for soft ground, the real short ones for hard ground. Now I like the molded, but they're kind of more of an all condition field, and it's sloppy wet more than. There's not a whole lot of grass going on here, and you're just kind of slipping on the surface, which doesn't really lend itself well to the kind of football boots that the manufacturers will make now.
Yeah, I wanted to point out one of the things that happened in the game that was very frightening was not far from where I was sitting. Palmacall got into a tangle with one of the Seattle players and went down, and as soon as he kind of popped up on a knee, he immediately grabbed his groin and kind of uttered a cuss word out loud. And I thought, and this is the sequence where the trainers had to come out and give him and look at him and take him off the field for a few minutes. And I thought, oh no, that's not a good sign. But I'll be damned if that kid didn't put in one of the finest performances over the course of. He played the whole game, didn't he? Did he play the whole, or did he come out?
No, the whole game. Yeah.
Yeah, he played 90 minutes. Man, what an impressive performance, and we shall never, ever forget the turn, progression of coverage and chip into the open space for the second goal. What a fantastic sequence by Paxton Palmacall.
Yeah, I had it down as his best game since 2019. I think since before the pandemic, he hasn't played like this. 90%, 91% passing in the midfield is what you'd expect from him. But he had 3 key passes, which is a phenomenal performance. Burial had 4, but 3 is from Paxton is phenomenal. He had 17 duels Paxton did and won them at a 69% clip, almost a 70% clip. And then he also drew 5 fouls, so they clearly knew that he was causing them fits. It was just one of the absolute best performances we've seen from Paxton that I can remember. I mean, I was going all the way back like 4 seasons now, and I can't think of a game that was better than this one. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And you remember that, Peter, when you guys had him on the kick around right after he had this operation, he said that he'd be better the second season. He would be improving and get better, just like if it was an ACL kind of situation. And I honestly think we're seeing that. Now, you still do have these occasional worries, like you say, where he does grab his groin occasionally, and maybe there's just some pain in there that he just has to deal with. Maybe that's pure speculation on my part, but his play is coming back. Yes, there's a tiny little bit of like foray into the box you want to see, where you want to see him get, a goal or get a final little touch in the box to do something. That tiny little bit maybe to be like a De Bruyne. But this is almost that level of MVP, league level MVP performance. It's so close to being that way. And it's just so exciting to see it. For those of us that have been wanting him to play like this is the Paxton of old. It was so good.
It was a beautiful sight to behold because the thing that he was doing Saturday night was he was relentless in his battling. You were talking about his duels, and there were, I don't know, it wasn't just one or two, it was 3 or 4 or 5 very clear moments where he was in physical confrontations with somebody over a ball, and he was winning them, and he just looked like old Paxton again in many ways. And it was really the cherry on top of it was that how he started that entire sequence on that second goal. Just the way he receives the ball, kind of first runs into like an open space, finds open space, receives the ball, turns, and then just sees this beautiful little chip over the back line into the far corner. I was sitting, again, because I'm down near ground level. When he received the ball in turn, I couldn't see whoever it was on the far right side that he plays the ball to. I guess it's Nanu. And I couldn't see it, but he saw it. And he just like almost blindly chipped that ball 30 yards off to his right. It was so sexy. It was lovely. It was great stuff from Paxton. It was good to see.
Yeah, that whole play from the whole team was gorgeous. And even some of the national guys, when they played out that clip, they said, do not undersell the initial pass from Paxton, the value of that pass, the setup, how that the whole thing keys off of that beginning play, and having him back to this kind of form is just, and obviously we hope that we're going to see it going forward. He didn't play in Kansas City for the Open Cup, not surprising. But having Paxton be back at peak Paxton is so massively important for this team.
Dan, talk about Matt Hedges' return and just how much better this team is defensively with Matt back there, please.
Well, they're capable with him. The load that Matt Hedges puts on his back cannot be underestimated. You see it when in the previous game when Tafaro came in, and Tafaro didn't have a terrible performance. Martinez was pretty good, but Hedges is that kind of go-to guy, right? He allows Martinez to be the play out the back guy, the kind of possessor of the ball, knowing that Hedges is going to clean up pretty much everything. When Tafaro comes in, they're kind of split in responsibility. I think Martinez still had the most touches in that game, most passes, but you kind of. There's that not that ease. There's that you hope that Tafaro is going to be able to cover if Martinez loses the ball, but I don't know. There's a lot of there's a lot of mental aspect to it in the team, just how much it puts the guys at ease. But Matt Hedges nationally is a criminally underrated defender, which obviously here in DFW we all know that, but. Having him back just kind of just changes the entire scope of the defense. The way they play defensively, the way they cover. There were a few times where Emma was getting beat on the dribble. He'd just tuck inside, let Matt come outside of him, almost play right back for a couple of seconds, clean the play up, and then switch back. You can't do that with many defenders in this league.
Buzz, I heard you on the MLS podcast or Twitter thing they do with Matt and Andrew about their power rankings. And Doyle asked you who the best player on this team is. And when he asked you the question, I was like, damn, who is the best player on this team? But you pretty quickly snapped back Paul Arriola, who scored a fine goal Saturday night.
He did. I was not ready for that question when they asked me, and I had that moment of like, wow, who is the best player? And certainly Jesus Ferreira playing the best of his career. There's no question for that. But to me, I said Paul Arriola because I was thinking about this game in particular, this last one, where he had 4 key passes, a goal, 5 shots, 76% passing as a frontline guy. He's winning just under 50% of his duels, but it's so. You also saw Steve Davis tweet out things like, well, Paul's only got 2 assists on the season, but like there were like 3 other occasions where his movement or his dummy run basically was an assist, and I also thought how much we've talked about how important I think by far he's the most important signing of the year because of his impact on the locker room. his ability to speak both languages. He instantly became a leader. He instantly galvanizes both sections of the groups, who some of whom can't speak the other language in the locker room. It has been an issue from time to time. He can communicate the coach's philosophy. It's like right now he's by far the most important player, in my opinion, on this team. And so that was where that in my brain clicked as best player. He's in the prime of his career, whereas Jesus is still improving. Paxton's still improving. Those guys have got years to grow. Ariel is at his peak, and he's made such a humongous difference. And I think even like in this Open Cup game, say Jesus is back in there at the end of the game. Alan Velasco's in there at the end of the game. It's still not the same. When Paul's not in there, it doesn't function the way it needs to function. His attention, the eyeballs that are on him. So, for me right now, I think he's definitely the most important player on this team, the MVP, if you will. And that's why I answered it the way I did. And he had a phenomenal game against Seattle in this one too. I think he recognized, what the moment of in a sense of it being the Champions League winner from, just days before, and how you can make a statement with a win here, even though it's against most of the reserve teams. By the end, they've got a lot of their guns in there, and it was a big, important game.
All right, I don't want to be unfair because I feel like I do this every week, and I don't want anybody to think I'm picking on the kid because I'm not. But he came with high expectations and a big salary or a big price tag. The Alan Velasco watch. Another kind of weird performance from Velasco. Like I said, I feel like he's getting dispossessed a little too easily. Just some questionable this and that here and there. And then to find out after the game on social media, he posted a tweet or an Instagram or some sort of message on social media indicating how much he misses his friends. And when you 19-year-old Argentinian in a foreign land is openly expressing that kind of thing, I think it's okay to be a little bit worried and wondering how acclimation is going on.
Yeah, I saw that tweet, and I for sure had the exact same worry. Like, oof, that's slightly worrying. The other thing that worries me is, as you say, like they're giving him a tons of freedom to go at people and go inside, outside. And obviously he has these moments of brilliance, but he does lose the ball a lot. And his duel rate is horrible. Like in this game in particular, it was only 17% winning. That's really bad. He's still, in terms of pure possession, he's still really high, and he has the ability to turn away and step away and kind of keep the ball. He did have 3 key passes, but it's really like it's a volatility to his game. It's either a hit or a miss bad. It's either a bad turnover or it's a glorious moment. And a couple of the bad turnovers have come when he had chances to put games away or make really decisive plays, or the other team made a big decisive play off of it. You have to remind yourself that he is a 19-year-old kid, and he is out of country where he doesn't know anybody. That tweet is, if it sets off alarm bells for you and I, imagine the alarm bells that should be going off inside their, soccer management group when they see that kind of public admission from him that he misses his friends and family. He didn't say family, he said friends, but same thing in a lot of ways for younger kids like that. So there's absolutely room to be concerned. And you can also include concerns that nobody behind him is making it difficult for him to keep that spot. Shun had a pretty poor game against Kansas City. Obrian can go over there, but that guy's having some nightmare performances too. Khalil's not doing anything to make people think that he is going to get in the game at any real pivotal moment or important game anytime soon. So, right now the guy's pretty much got the position on lock, and yet you're still worried about him.
Kind of reminds me of early Mauro Diaz. You you look to those 2 or 3 magic moments, and you just really hope that the game centers around them instead of them just being a pass to someone who takes a ridiculous shot from distance or ends up running it out of play.
Well, I think you could probably make a lot of comparisons. You could go all the way back to those days of Joselito Vaca and the old Burn days when he was just a young Bolivian kid that showed up out of nowhere and just looked overwhelmed and fish out of water type. It's got to be tough to be in that position and to be removed from your friends and family. And these are all the kind of things that we talked about on this podcast when they announced his signing, which is he's a 19-year-old kid that's never played anywhere other than Argentina. This is going to be a transition phase, but the goal of this is to make the team better, and there are stretches of time where where a lot of things break down because of him, and that's a disappointment at this point. So you hope it gets better before it gets worse, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, consider the usual, quote unquote, I'm air quoting here, the 6 month or so adjustment period. For him to be even as good as he is, in some ways, is a real positive if you have that context about it. I do think that he still is a guy who gets a lot of eyeballs and a lot of defensive attention, which benefits both Jesus and Areola. I mean, all three of those guys really are dudes you have to really pay attention to. You can't let any of them get loose or get free or get one-on-one. Velasco is still that kind of guy. I mean, if you don't pay very close attention to him, he will skin you. So yes, there's definitely room for improvement here, and there's definitely some deficiencies that have to be made up for. I mean, they very clearly have Paxton playing an outside-inside flip-flop role. Like whenever Velasco's going walkabout, Paxton's the one that has to deal with the space and read the game and recover and play the right defensive responsibility. Again, another thing he's doing phenomenally well. And even also too, Farfan is having to occupy that space sometimes when both Paxton and Velasco are doing stuff inside. Farfan has a lot of responsibility wide defensively. So yes, there's having to overcome some deficiencies. Yes, I'm now really worried because of that stupid tweet. Hopefully, I mean, that's the kind of red flag, man, going up. That's like a flare going up for somebody to tweet it. I mean, kids are much more in social media than we are naturally, right? But that's a huge flare going off for me that, like, man, they better get somebody in there and talking to that kid and holding his, kid gloves, make him feeling good about himself, and hopefully there's not some underlying locker room problem we're not aware of. Hopefully it's all good. So, definitely red flags for sure.
Well, there are a couple times where you see his teammates get frustrated with him on the field. That was pretty clear in the Seattle game. The moments where, when he starts to float into the middle and there's some confusion about what he's doing. And again, I can't tell if this is a level of freedom that he is exceeding, or if he's just doing his own thing unilaterally or what. But there are those moments in the game. And let me also say this about the social media post. The only reason why that's the reason why, at least for me, and I assume it is for you too, Buzz, is that this is reflective of things we've seen from other players. Yeah. Like Dan says, this reminds you of old Mauro Diaz. When we have seen these signals before that led to long stretches of bad play just because their head's not right with ball kind of stuff. And that's why when you and I see that, we go, uh-oh, that's not good.
Well, it's such a real thing that FC Dallas literally created a department just for this kind of thing, for this off-field comfort and helping guys feel integrated into the society and all that stuff. I mean, that's crazy in a way, given the history of the way this league has worked and the amount of the budgets they have, that they made a whole department for it. That's how important it is. So, it's a thing to watch for sure. Since we're only 3 months into a season, or is it 4? I can't even keep track. But still, there's a long way to go this year and a long way to go in his contract, presumably. So, for sure, a red flag.
Well, it was a fantastic night. Dallas 2, Seattle 0. The crowd, I think did they officially announce a sellout? Is that the sellout number that they posted? It is
19,096. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and at the end of the game, when the whole stadium's doing the FC Dallas chant, it was really cool. And it was great to kind of see that atmosphere in the building. Everybody was having a good time. Now, I will also, because I don't want to beat this drum too badly. I got to see the thing on the stage for myself in person, and my observation is this: at the beginning of kickoff, where the stadium and the announcer and the team is making a very clearly big deal about what do they call it, red alert or something? I'm not sure how they talk about this. But there's this whole kind of like buildup of them lighting the thing that is over the top. But then when it goes off, it's like that pop gun where the little flag comes out at the end and goes pow. It doesn't pay off for the amount of buildup that they put into the stadium. And what I found interesting is sitting in the crowd, immediately beforehand, they introduced Chris Richards, who was in town. And everybody around me was super enthusiastic and clapping for Chris Richards, But as soon as they got to this whole red alert thing and lighting the sign, nobody could have cared less. Like, they all just started looking at their phones or talking to each other. Nobody turned and watched. It was the weirdest thing. It's like just nobody gives a crap about it.
Yeah, that seemed totally fair. It is a bit of a letdown when it actually happens with the build up, the hitting the button to get those crappy sparklers, which that's new, that's something. But
they added sparklers this week, yes.
Yeah, but the light show is just, it blinks on, it blinks off, it blinks on, it blinks off. I mean, I think I'd mentioned it in the in a takeaway sig when they first did it. Your computer now, if it's got LEDs and that can link up to like the sound that comes through your speakers or something like that. You could have it reacted to the crowd noise. You can, I don't know, have a controller on it where, hey, goal goes off, let's shoot some fireworks out of it. Let's do a real light show. Let's have one of the other elements light up because it looks like there's plastic with some capability to put something behind it that will light up. It's cool that they did it, but yeah, it's weird that they kind of shoehorned it into the red alert thing, which it felt like was, with the videos and everything else, for when the players come out, was almost a bigger deal then than it is with the Shield.
Well, it's funny because the production value of surrounding the lighting of the sign is very high level. It's really good. The way that they've got the stadium all synced up, the video boards on both ends and the ribbon boards around the side, all of that works really, really well. It's just the payoff of the sign itself is so lame. They've got to add more stuff to it. Now, that said, the drone show after the game was the coolest thing, and they deserve so much credit for whatever they spent to get that drone show to show up. And it was great. And for those who got to see it, you got a treat. And if you didn't, I'm sure there's videos of it somewhere. But if you've never seen a drone show, that unto itself is worth the price of admission. But the fact that this was all kind of themed Dallas and everything was even better. And so kudos to them for pulling that off.
That was absolutely awesome. I only got to see the little bit. It was kind of funny because at first, you saw the music came on and you could see the drones sort of lining up in this weird like green and white square, I guess, as they were calibrating them. I was like, is this really it? This is crap. And then, next thing you know, they all turn off and then just appear as the FC Dallas logo, and you're like, oh my god, that's crazy. They're very cool. Fireworks going off to it, awesome. I would have loved to have seen the rest of it, but we had to jump into Nico's press conference, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only problem with watching those drone shows is that if you spend a little bit too much time thinking about it, it really puts you into a frightening state of what our future and the end of humanity when the robots take over.
Yeah, I, for one, welcome our overlords.
The funny thing is, I always remember as a kid going to, I guess it would have been Universal, and there was the Terminator 2 4D ride.
Oh,
and where you're watching like the 3D thing and there's those little drones shooting lasers. I just remember it was this weird optical illusion because some woman that was sitting in front of me had like massive hair and it just kind of appears through it. And you're like, oh wow, that's actually happening now. They're just, instead of shooting lasers right now, they're creating the FC Dallas logo in the sky.
It was a lot of fun and a great night. Now, I hate to be the bummer here, but got to talk about what happened last night. Now, I'm lucky. I didn't watch the game, and I don't really know what happened other than what I read in Dan's report. I know the score, and by all accounts, it was a super shitty evening of U.S. Open Cup action for Dallas up in Kansas City, and it sounds like all of the guys that shouldn't have let them down.
Yeah, this is a game of two halves for sure. FC Dallas came out with, by the way, for a club that says it takes the U.S. Open Cup very seriously, for them to now run out two Open Cup lineups that are complete 100% reserve teams says to me that you don't take the Open Cup very seriously, but that's an entirely different discussion. The first half, Kansas City tried to play the way Kansas City plays, which is they clog up the middle part of the field and they make it very difficult for you to get through there, and they try and stifle your play that way. Well, that wasn't working. Dallas was stomping the tar out of them, It literally should have been 5-0 at halftime. Frank O'Hara missed two goals that he was within like 8 inches of the goal line that he did. One he didn't get to, and one he just didn't get a finish off of it. And then O'Brien did the exact same thing where he had a ball where he got to with about a foot from the goal and he pushes it about a foot wide of the goal. And then, of course, he had one that was even worse in the second half where he could have walked into the goal and instead he fired it 40 rows into the stands. So Dallas is clearly dominating the first half. It's about as decisive as a walkover as you have ever seen. Well, Peter Vermees, being a guy who knows how to coach cup games, in the second half, they change the philosophy and they start high-pressing Dallas. And Dallas is basically running out a full reserve team, and they cannot handle it. They cannot build out. They start turning the ball over like crazy, and Kansas City starts dominating the crap out of the game. And it was only a matter of time, honestly, before things went south. Still, O'Brien could have killed the game and didn't. And it's one of the most egregious letdowns you'll ever see. And then at the end of the game, there's 30 seconds left. There's a couple of moments where they could have stifled the game and killed it, and they didn't. And then Martinez makes this incredibly stupid foul on the last man for a red card. And then nobody marks up very well on the corner, and they blow the game. And then now you're going into overtime with down a man and on the road, and you're toast. You know, that was a game they had won, and they let it slip out of their hands. And putting teams away, being ruthless in cup games, is something that young, inexperienced reserve teams have to learn. But your two oldest, most experienced players in that lineup, O'Brien and Hara, are the ones that blew the bunny goals and did not put that game away and win that game for Dallas when they should have.
And am I to understand that one of your veteran defenders also kind of screwed the pooch?
Yeah,
I disagree on that.
Well, let me give my take on Martinez first, and then you can jump in here, Dan. For me, Martinez is coming. The play is looping around Tafari's other side, and Martinez is coming across. And all you have to do is face that guy up and let him continue to carry his run, which is going wide of the goal. And by the time Martinez gets there, the dude tries to cut back, and the ball gets extended out too far away from him. And as he tries to cut inside, Martinez clips him and the guy goes down. I think the ball was already too far away from him at that point. Either way, Martinez, for me, is because he knows he doesn't have enough pace, he's running full bear as hard as he can. And by the time he gets there, he's out of control and he clips the guy, and it's a last red card, and the game's over, basically.
Last man red card.
Last man red card. Now, granted, you could have marked up the corner and stopped the goal that happened. It was a well-done corner. Granted, there was a play higher up the field where Thomas Roberts got quadruple teamed, and if he just would have played the ball sideways or drawn a foul like Paxson would have done, that would have killed the game too. There's lots of guys that are at fault, but for me, a guy with the experience of Martinez, your leader in the back, needs to be better in that moment. I think it's a horrible moment, and I think it cost him the game. Go, Dan.
Yeah, I thought Martinez's big mistake, I thought, was his initial run. Daniel Salwe's coming through. Rather than actually try and intercept the run, he runs really to where Salwe was, not where he is now. And at that point, Salwe's basically through on goal, and he has no choice but to bring him down. I think in that situation, it's totally reasonable to take one for the team, albeit if he'd have been a little bit wiser, maybe with his initial positioning, it would have just been a simple foot out, knock the ball away. But yeah, the corner was. I can't remember the fella's name, the Cypriot guy. A free header on the corner of the 6-yard box. Really, really soft one. Nestles in the far corner. Jimmy Mauer just stands there and watches it. Doesn't react at all. I don't know if he thought it was going wide. Between that and the markers, just an absolute clown show of a goal.
Velasquez was standing next to the guy when the play started and didn't go with him, and Khalil was standing in the box and didn't come out. So the guy just had an open header. It's 2 defensive mistakes on that corner from those 2 guys.
Yeah. All right. No, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then, obviously you get into extra time and you have a weird shin kick save that could have just been an easy go to ground and grab the ball that comes off of Edwin and then loops over in. And then that weird throw-in moment where Edwin takes a couple of steps away as if he's going to let the ball go across his body, not realizing that Kyrie Shelton's standing right next to him and just says, "Thanks a lot, I'll have that."
Yeah. it was an epic meltdown of epic proportions.
Well,
All right, so not having seen the game, I'm wondering, did you see things out of Edwin Cerrillo that indicate to you why maybe he hasn't been starting a lot lately?
I don't know about
in
Dan,
league
but,
games.
Yeah, I don't know about Dan, but I thought his first half was actually exceptional, really, really good. And the second half I thought was really good up until he had to then go play center back. And when they put him at center back in overtime. Now, see, part of the problem is that because they didn't have they brought a bunch of kids that they wanted to try and get minutes for. And then things happened in the game and they were forced into playing those kids. Like in the current moment of the game, having to put on Roberts was not really something you wanted to do. That wasn't the right time to give Roberts his first minutes. You end up with Edwin Cerrillo playing center back in overtime, and because they were out, Martinez was out, and the other guys had already been subbed, and they were in a flat four at that point. So there's Khalil was forced to come in and try and play massive minutes. It's just like it was not. You didn't have the right pieces on the bench to close out that game that you needed. And so for the first 60, 70 minutes, I thought Edwin was phenomenal. And even the broadcaster was talking about how great he was. And I thought Brandon Servania also played a really excellent game. I mean, not excellent. He played up to Brandon Servania's standards. But when you played a formation that only had those two guys, and it was a 3-4-3 most of the game going, so like this is the situation where your wings have to come back and help and your outside wingbacks have to get forward to create that structure in midfield, because otherwise those two guys are on island and they get smoked. So that part all went fairly well. Both those guys had good games up until the very last seconds of the game when it all gets thrown away by getting a red card.
So you said earlier in the podcast that Shibboleth Schoen had a bad performance, and we've seen literally, I think, nothing of him in league play, or very, very little. Are indications or signs pointing to him being sold in the summer window, or is he done here?
I just think he hasn't found his way into the coach's confidence, and now he's not feeling good about himself and where he is, and things aren't going well. I wouldn't have said his game was really bad. It's just that he didn't do anything to make a case for himself. He didn't do anything good. There wasn't like a moment from you could take from him and go, "Oh, kid, build on that. Oh, there's a thing I can use." Like he didn't make it seem like, man, I got to start getting that guy in more games. It's like Safari was man of the match for me, because he literally was the only guy I watched I thought who actually helped himself, where I walked away thinking, "Oh, I'd like to see a little bit more of that guy." Nobody else in the game did I feel that way, other than Brandon and Edwin, who already get our regular contributors. So
I actually forgot that Schoen was playing until he played that weird back pass that just gave Sporting Kansas City
a good
goal.
sign.
Yeah.
You love to say that about centered or holding mids. You don't like saying that about your winger.
Yeah, you're 6 or like that 8 that sneaks in a goal. You never want to see them until they pop up in the box. But yeah, you're attacking winger. You want to see them constantly.
Yeah, that back pass that he made, that was one of the key moments of the game. When you make that kind of mistake, that's not the kind of thing that's going to get you into games. That's going to keep you out of games. And he didn't do anything with the ball.
Pulled immediately after that as well.
Yeah, they essentially subbed him in like 2 seconds later. And that's what I mean about like they're forced to bring Khalil on in that spot. That's not who you want to be bringing on there. So it's like Schoen's not doing anything to make up for that one bad moment, nor is he doing anything to make me think, oh yeah, he's for sure going to be on the bench and he's for sure getting in the next one. Now I'm like, why would you put him on the bench after that?
I think it just kind of reinforces your point about taking the cup seriously when Vermees has Salwi, Shelton, Russell, and a couple other, real game changers on the bench, and you've got Jesus, you've got Velasco, who if you're playing with a bunch of reserves, isn't going to get the service he wants, so he's just going to drop deep and get frustrated and then try and do everything, which in turn, funnily enough, Thomas Roberts also did. You're left with, like you say, Thomas Roberts' first minutes, and then going into extra time, the only outfield player left is Benny Redžić, who's, you've then got to put on for Brandon Servania because he's run himself into the ground.
So how much of what happened last night do you put on Estevez and how he managed the game?
Definitely some. I'm not going to put a lot because there are some veterans in that game that let the team down massively. But I think they overdid the rotation. I think they overdid the bring all the kids and get them into the game. To me, that all said along with his T-shirt that they don't value the Open Cup very much. Then the responses were late happening in the game. And in a lot of ways, his hands are really forced. Like once his veterans bled him down and blew it, he didn't have really any other options, and that had to do with who they brought. So, there definitely were some mistakes made. Like if your goal was to win this game, no matter what, you wouldn't have had this bench and this 11. This was more like this lineup and this bench. To me, only reading the names was here's a chance for me to get some guys that are never going to get a chance to play if I don't play them in this game. Here's some kids that are never going to get into a game if I don't get them into this game. And they brought them all. That's not how you win games. And that, even though they should have won this one and had this one dominated and blew it, it still was not a lineup and a formation and a bench that made me think they're all in on the Open Cup. It made me think like, this is the only chance I'm going to get. And now, of course, they're out. So none of these players are going to get into any games going forward. Not all of them, but the 5 or 6 that were the guys that we were trying to get minutes for.
So it sounds like, and again, I didn't see a minute of this game. It sounds like the reappearance of Thomas Roberts wasn't the prime opportunity, and maybe not the most fair thing to judge Thomas by.
Well, I want to hear Dan's take. The moment was not the moment I would have wanted him to get in, but I actually thought he was okay. To me, he looks like a kid who hasn't played since 2019. And given that circumstance, I actually thought he was all right. He didn't make any humongous defensive blunders. There was a moment at the end of the game where if he would have made a different decision, it might have killed the game off. But that's what I meant about like, why is this kid the guy you're being forced to put in the game when it's on the line? You wanted to bring Thomas and get him into a game when it was out of hand and over, right? That's when you get your first minutes, not when it's a do or die. And that's what I mean about it being a problem. I thought Thomas was perfectly okay. He should have done some more defensive work. He doesn't quite track back like you'd like to. Maybe there's a couple of decisions that aren't pristine. But overall, the touch looks pretty good. He brings a little size. He can definitely play combinations. They definitely recognized him as a guy who could actually progress the ball in midfield. So anytime he would get it, they would send 2 or 3 guys at him because he was the only dude that could actually build forward at that point in the game. So I've seen worse. It's just his coach, I don't think, did him any favors. But again, if you want to test a guy, it was a pretty good test. There are other dudes that failed the coach way more than Thomas did.
Other than maybe that moment where he dribbled his way into trouble and had the outlet pass on the right, I thought it was totally serviceable. Had a few nice lofted passes out to the wings. He kind of had those Velasco moments of, I'm going to just try and do it all myself since no one else is. But it's rough, right? You're that attacking, mainly a 10 who's trying to make a life at 8. You've been at one club where you're not getting the time which you thought was your kind of outlet away from it, and then you get brought in and end up playing really almost as a 6 by the time that they were getting pressed back. It's just not that environment that he can thrive in.
Well, I guess I'm just hoping that nobody judges Tommy Poo too harshly from that. Let's get him in a real deal, and and more opportunities, and then you can judge him from there. The one name that I haven't heard you talk about a lot, Buzz, lately, and I was thinking about this, and I don't know if he made an appearance in this game or not. Is did Parker get in the game?
No, he wasn't.
Did he play?
With the team. No, he wasn't with the team.
What's going on?
Well, Parker is a one for the future kind of guy. You remember he's coming out of college the same age that Reggie, for example, or Brandon Cervini, for example, signed their first homegrown deals, and he's on a GA deal. It's equivalency kind of deal. So he's super exciting. He's a better player than most of the players you see come out of college, but he's also a player that needs bags and bags of games. So he's down with North Texas basically full time. As they're starting left back, he's getting every single game down there, and he's training with them full time, and he's doing pretty well. He's looking like he did get a red card the other day.
So he's going to miss the next game.
Yeah, he's going to miss the next game. But, they're doing exactly what they need to do with him is send him down there and let him play 20 games. By the end of this season, I think that he will be back with the first team and he will start to get minutes. I don't think Eddie Munjoma did anything in this game that makes me think that he'll keep that spot as the second left back over Parker whenever they get him all bloodied up and ready to come back. and as early as next year, I think he'll be full time again. Not actually by the end of this year, probably, but certainly next year he'll be the second choice left back going forward. He'll start to press Farfan for minutes. So you just remember where Reggie was after that first year at UCLA, or where Brandon was when he came out of Wake Forest after 1 year. That's where this kid is. So he's not drafted, unlike Seeking to Sebling, who they drafted thinking that he might be able to contribute this year. Same with Bartlett. That's not why you pick Parker. You pick Parker really, really high because of the GA status and his massive, massive upside to potentially be like a national team kind of caliber left back. That's the goal.
The problem you have with Parker is Reggie had what's his name? The Argentine fella who played right back for one season. Yeah,
Grana.
Hernan Grana to kind of learn from, and he, speaking to him, he definitely credits him with a lot of his growth. Parker doesn't really have that. Your most experienced fullback is 23 years old.
Yeah, Farfan, young. Yeah, that's true.
Hey, Buzz, you said you didn't see anything from Majoma to make you believe he was going to not hold that spot. He scored a pretty good goal. I did see that highlight on Twitter.
Yeah, the goal's a banger. Don't get me wrong. Eddie's capable of a banger. The thing about him that people, the reason got him picked is he was offensive outside back, right? The modern kind of flying style outside back. There were times in college where they would give him the whole half of the field. But this coach is not that kind of coach. This is not Lucci. This is a different coach where he wants a defensive first outside back. And Majoma defensively is a mess. His team shape is a mess. His single one-on-one defending is a mess. Yes, he gets forward, and he's so good offensively, in fact, but there's been times where they've used him as a wing, like an outright winger, as a sub or as in scrimmages and such. He's not actually left-footed. He's right. It's a righty. He's really a right back, not a left back. They just can use him over there because he did it so much at the academy. Because Reggie was on the right in the same class as him, so. I don't see enough progression from Majoma that makes me think that he's going to be the guy. I don't see enough defensive stuff to think that he's going to work for this coach. I don't see enough offense to make up for those deficiencies. So there's a reason why they drafted Parker third overall.
Okay.
They already had Majoma, so I'm not seeing it. He's a guy firmly on my start looking for a USL job list.
All right, I did not hear the audio of Nico's post-game press conference from last night. I did read the quotes, and I read the quotes of Maurer and some of the other players, and the vibe I got was, really proud of how hard we played. It sucks we lost. I kind of got the sense that everybody was kind of glad the cup stuff was over with, and now they can get back to worrying about the season. So maybe it's okay that you have a brain fart of a game in the cup and not in a league game.
They were all pissed. They were all really pissed.
Were they? Okay. It didn't come across that way in the quotes.
John Arnold asked Jimmy about what you kind of take from it, and Jimmy is like seething, but at the same time is saying, I'm proud of the guys playing in that heat, that humidity, yada yada yada. And then eventually, John asks the question of, now you're at the cup, how does this kind of like affect your ability to showcase yourself for the starting job? And he's just like, to be frank, I don't give a shit. And that was when it was like, okay, now we're out.
Yeah.
Nico was just trying to be a coach. Most of the stuff he was doing was in Spanish before I asked the question at the end about just, how the game went, how the second half went specifically, and I think that's what they took most of the quotes from.
Yeah, I think when you look at the lineup and the people are on the bench, again, it just shows that this was game for this staff and for this club. In terms of the context of this season, this game was about trying to develop some of the younger bottom of the roster players, getting a test for some guys, sort of seeing where they have some guys, seeing what they kind of maybe have in terms of their backups. So, so from this game, you can learn a lot from all of that stuff, right? That's what I mean about, like, you look at it coming in. It's like that wasn't screaming, we're going after the cup to me. That was like, here's a chance to get some guys in the game. So yeah. I don't think big picture they're going to be fussed. They're going to be pissed that they blew it and threw the game away. That they'll be pissed about. But like the fact they're out of the cup, I honestly don't think they're going to care, which is weird because the damn cup's named after the owner, Lamar Hunt. They claim that they care about it so much, and then yet this is what you get. So it's weird. And I'm sure somebody from the club will tell me I'm crazy, but I mean, look at the dang lineup for yourself and tell me you disagree. I don't mean you guys.
I mean, the way the season is played out, I think they've exceeded expectations, but they don't have a super deep roster. I love the U.S. Open Cup, but I'm not. It's not a critical portion of the season for me. So using it as an opportunity to try some new things and get some players some time, and you lose a game on the road is not a big deal to me. But again, your mileage may vary, and some people are probably rightfully pissed off they lost the game. But
I think Sporting's clearly a club that takes the Cup much more seriously. They're now 5-0 against FC Dallas in Open Cup games, and they've won 4, and Dallas has won 2. So I think it's pretty clear what it means when you actually do take the Cup seriously. You get a team like Sporting Kansas City.
Well, I think it's at this point of the podcast where we just brace everybody for the reality that it doesn't get any easier from here, Buzz, because as you mentioned earlier, 5 of the 7 coming up are on the road through June, and even the home games they got coming aren't necessarily easy ones, and they start off at the Galaxy this weekend.
Yeah, look, to be fair, some people have mentioned, when I've mentioned this, some people have said, well, you guys talked about the start of the season being tough. It was, and the club did pretty well. They did. But that doesn't change the fact that this is a rough stretch. It's now 5-7, and it's against teams in the top of the table, right? LA's 3rd, Minnesota's 7th, Orlando's 4th, Austin's 2nd, LAFC is 1st. So it's like you're getting the top of the West, and the one East team is the top of the East team. You got Vancouver in there twice. They stink. But so you're still this is a big test. You're playing against the very best teams of the Western Conference. So 5-7 on the road. MLS life is hard on the road. So don't expect, a 500 run in this stretch of games to me would be a massive, massive positive thing. These are the teams that you're competing with to be a top 3 team in the West. I still don't think this is a top 3 team in the West. So I think this stretch is going to be rough. They may prove me wrong. They may come out of this thing flying. They may blow these teams out, or they may grind out these results like they've been grinding them out all year, and they may come out of the back end of this thing in second place. Awesome. There's nothing to say that they can't do that other than the fact that I'm not quite a top 3 believer yet. And this is a very, very difficult stretch. So it's a massive, massive test. And I think by the end of it, we will know whether this is a legit top of the West contender or if it's a middle of to the bottom playoff contender who still has a shot and still a good team, just maybe not elite yet. So that's why it's important, this stretch.
If you had one particular goal out of this stretch, and I know it's easy to say collecting points. We should get X amount of points, but I'm thinking maybe more granular than that. Is there something that you'd like to see out of the team?
Yeah, it'll be important to me that you continue to play well at home in the middle of the 2 games that you have of all these road games, that if the road games are not going great, you don't let it affect your home form. It'll be important to see if they continue to grind out some positive road points. It doesn't have to be wins. Some ties in there will be good. Sort of maintain this positive, good feeling like you have a chance on the road. Also take care of the teams that you should take care of. Those 2 games against Vancouver, drill that team into the ground. And then Austin, also when you get up against Austin and your rival, go to their house and make it very difficult for them. So that's 4 or 5 things, but there's lots of things beyond just points that you can look for from this section and things that, and obviously we'll learn something about this club from every single game. But, this is an important sequence we're about to come into here too. This is starting to get into the heat of the season too. This is starting to get to the stage where Dallas is not doing very well. They don't have a great May, June, August record, July in there too, of course. So this is going to be key. This is going to be big.
Okay. So speaking specifically of the Galaxy, either one of you got any predictions in terms of lineups or what we should be looking for?
Well, the starting 11 is pretty set, other than right back, which I think Tuamasi's done pretty well to cement himself the last couple of games. The big one is holding mid, the 6, the Facu Edwin, which I thought was going pretty heavily home road, but we just saw a reversal of that, based on Edwin being the cup game. So, again, this is back on the road, so everything about it says Facundo, probably, and that remains the big battle. I mean, I don't think Martinez won't be suspended because he's out for the next Cup game, which is next
Brandon's
year.
back, though, right?
Brandon should be back. I assume he gets his spot back. Siki played pretty well. They didn't even travel him. Brandon did play 90-ish or more, so maybe there's a little bit of maybe Siki might keep a spot in midfield. So those are really the only spots. Facundo versus Edwin. Maybe Siki on rotational reasons might stay in over Brandon, although I wouldn't. I'd go back to Brandon because Brandon playing really well. For me, and then I think Tuamasi's for now has a hold on that right back spot. So otherwise, it's all pretty obvious that everyone should be able to predict it.
I think it's definitely worth keeping in mind. They're going to take a big travel pie with them because at least from the schedule we got sent, it looks like they're going to stay on the West Coast and just go straight up to Vancouver.
That's fair, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they traveled to Kansas City, came home, and now are going back to L.A., so they've got a lot of travel built up, so that would make sense because the idea of going to Kansas City, to Dallas, to L.A., back to Dallas, then to Vancouver just seemed like a lot. So.
Yeah, I mean, you have a Wednesday game, so you're probably worried about workload. Again, it's at Vancouver, who's not nearly as good as L.A., so where do you put your emphasis? These are things we're still learning about this coach. It seems likely to me that you get Facundo in L.A., so maybe then you go back to Edwin in Vancouver. Maybe Siki with Brandon playing Tuesday. Maybe Siki's in L.A. Maybe Brandon's back in Vancouver. So you're going to see probably maybe some little more rotation against Vancouver, perhaps. Like a couple guys, like maybe you'll see a Franco Hara get a start again, or maybe an Obram might get a start again in there. When you have a Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday sequence like that, and then another Sunday real quick, lots of road stuff. This is the first kind of many games in a short window we've seen like this much. So we're going to learn something about this coach. And so I don't think anything's going to be locked in. As much as we think the first 11's locked in, there might be some kind of different things this week, maybe some different formations even too. So since we saw a completely different formation against Kansas City in the Open Cup, maybe there'll be some more different ones for other games too.
All right. Well, anything else we need to discuss before we...
Man, there's a lot. I got a lot in there.
There was a lot in there. Dan, y'all good? You set?
No, I'm not good. I had to watch that game yesterday.
Well, I'm glad that I didn't watch
to get
it.
over that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan. Hey, when does Luton play their first playoff game?
Tomorrow at, I think, 1:30.
1:30, and they're playing...
Huddersfield Town.
Oh, Chris Clark's Huddersfield Town. All right. Well, good luck. I'm rooting for the Luton Town Hatters.
Thank you. It'll be on ESPN Plus. Tomorrow 1:45, and then on Monday 1:45.
Are you the home game first or second?
We are the second. I'm pretty sure.
You have the second.
We're home game first apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, very
Both
good.
games
Good luck
already
there.
sold out. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's me again, Lance Lester. I just want to remind you that Third Degree the podcast is brought to you by Soccer 90, your source for FC Dallas, U.S. national team, and international club gear. Check out the new arrivals dropping daily. If you missed out on the North Texas SC Pinstripe away jersey at launch, more stock has arrived in various sizes. Grab yours before it's gone. But remember, Third Degree listeners get 20% off at soccer90.com with promo code Third Degree. Some exclusions may apply, so have fun with that.
Thank you for your time today. Good work, sir. Dan, that was directed to you.
Thank you, Peter, for making us sound professional as always, until I screwed that up.
Awesome. Buzz, thank you, sir. Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you for fighting through your methane lab vibes over there.
Meth lab.
That's totally that's a complete inside reference, but thank you, Buzz. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't pass out. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious fans. We'll speak to you next week in a far more coherent episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Thomas Roberts got minutes at least.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.